I want you to imagine what would happen if when you touched a hot stove, it took 6 months for you to feel the burn, for you to feel the effect of touching that stove. You would never learn anything. You'd probably even keep touching it because you'd have no idea that your hand on that hot stove was the very thing causing the pain. Because by the time the pain shows up 6 months down the road, you would have done thousands of other things, and your brain would have no way to make a connection between those two factors. And that is how most of life works. And I think it's the single biggest reason people quit the things that matter to them. Every journey starts with a choice, and mine is a bet. For 1 year, I'm gambling on energy over strategy. No more forcing and no pushing. Just the courage to show up and see what happens when reality becomes my playground. This isn't a podcast. It's a real-time experiment in the lab of my life. Welcome to the bet. So I've been sitting with this concept all week, really part of last week too, because I think it's just one of those ideas that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it really helps reframe everything. Every decision I'm making in this business, every thought I have about whether or not something is working, every moment where I catch myself wondering, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? That favorite thought of mine, all of that gets to run through this one lens now. And that lens is this. The reason we struggle so much as humans with building anything that takes time, whether it's a business or a body or a relationship or some kind of new identity, is because the feedback loop has a massive gap in it. The gap between the cause and the effect is really fucking wide. It's so wide that our brain cannot make the connection between the two. Think about how a child learns that the stove is hot. Learns because it's instant. Touch it, you get the pain, and it's done. The neural pathway wires immediately. And that child very likely will never touch a hot stove again, because the feedback was so fast that the brain had zero confusion about what caused that pain. And that's one of the ways that human brains really like to learn, when the cause and the effect are right on top of one another. It really helps the lesson stick, along with other things like heightened emotion. That helps wire something quicker too. Now, think about going to the gym. Same thing. You go today, you work really hard, you come home, you look in the mirror, and nothing has changed. You go again tomorrow, same thing. You go again for another week. You go again for 2 weeks. You go again for a full month. You still don't see much of anything because it takes a really long time of consistent effort before the body starts to visually reflect what you've been doing. And in that space between the work and the visible result, that is when humans love to quit. It's because the brain is having difficulty connecting the reps that you're doing in October to the muscles that are going to start showing up in February. That distance is really wide for the brain to make a connection. And it works the same way in the other direction. You can slip in some food here and there, eat a little extra snack for one day, and you don't really feel anything. You could do that for a week, and you're still pretty much the same. It's those tiny degrees of decline consistently done that are so gradual, you don't even notice them. By the time you actually see the effect of months of those small little eating decisions, You're so far down the road that it's very difficult for the brain to connect it or trace it back to any single choice. You just feel like garbage and you don't know exactly how it happened. But what if you could? What if we lived in a reality where you could see the instant result of every single choice you made? What if every thought, every action, every decision created an effect that just showed up immediately? Like turning a dial. Every choice you make would move the dial one direction or the other, and you would be able to see that move in real time, instantly. If you skipped a workout and your leg literally transformed into a piece of blubber right there in front of your eyes, you would never skip again. And if you ate something and could feel the damage it was doing to your organs in real time, or if you felt like a sudden increase in vitality from a bite of food that made you feel highly energetic and alive, right? That would be real-time feedback. You would eat very differently. If you had some kind of limiting thought about yourself and you could instantly see your energetic field start to dim and darken, and you would see people treating you differently, watch yourself become invisible to other people. If you could watch that, you would be catching your thoughts so fast. Now, let's point out that if we could see instant feedback for everything we do, I would be able to see every person who rolled their eyes at something I posted on Instagram, or every person who pressed play on an episode of a podcast and turned it off after 30 seconds. Every person who thought, who does she think she is? I would feel that too. So the distance between us and the effect of our actions is protective. It shields us from a lot of pain, not just from proof that it's working. But even knowing that it's protecting me from pain, even knowing that I would feel or become aware of every single rejection, every single nasty thought, every single dismissal in real time, if I could see what all of that is actually shaping me into, if I could see the woman I am becoming through the act of doing this work week after week, I would put everything I have into it because I could see the dial moving. I could watch how a thought literally changes the dial, how an action cranks the dial over, how a choice would be calibrating me closer to or further from this version of myself that all of this I'm doing is building right here. And that changes everything because now it's not about hoping something is working out there in the world or having some kind of faith. It would be watching yourself, literally watching yourself becoming someone in real time and getting feedback for everything we do. Why can't we live in a world like that? Why can't that be how it is? That's what I've been thinking about this week. Now, let me bring that into what I'm building here, because I think about if I just finish recording an episode and could see every single person who will ever, until the end of time, press play on it and see their faces, feel their reactions, know exactly which sentence landed for which person and what it shifted in them, I would never question whether this feeling I'm having about doing it even matters. Or go even further. If I could see that this episode is building a skill inside of me right now, despite what reactions other people are having, if I could see the skill that's being built in me right this moment as I'm speaking, that the act of sitting here, organizing my thoughts, learning how to communicate this concept is creating a capability that will contribute to a future episode I haven't even thought of yet. And that future episode will open a door I can't even see from here. And behind that door is a conversation or a client or an opportunity that only exists because I sat here, right here, tonight, and did this work. What if I could see that? What if I could see that? What if I could see the full ramification of everything I'm doing in each moment? I think I would have laser level intention with every single thought I have, every single action I take. I wouldn't waste a single thought on whether this is working because I would see the chain reaction unfolding in real time. If we could live in a world like that, we wouldn't even need mindset work. We wouldn't need any of the strategies I teach people because the natural consequence of every choice would be visible and immediate. And the brain would just take the reins and go from there. Like touch the stove, feel the burn, and don't touch it again. But that is not the world we live in, sadly. We live in a world where there is a massive distance between what we do and what we see. And that distance is where all the confusion lives. That is where self-doubt hangs out. And that is where it becomes very easy to be the kind of person who punts the ball, postpones a decision, or procrastinates on something, to kick a decision down the road because you can't see what that procrastination or that postponing is actually costing you. The cost is real. It's just invisible to most of us for quite a while. And here's where the biology makes this even harder. The human brain is always and forever going to optimize for conserving resources. That is its primary job. Keep you alive, spend as little energy as possible doing it. So if there doesn't appear to be a very apparent direct benefit to something, your biology is going to double down on getting you to question whether this is a smart use of your resources. That's what brains do. They conserve energy. So every week when I sit down to record this, my brain is automatically running a cost-benefit analysis in the background. And because the benefit appears invisible, because the effect hasn't shown up yet, the brain keeps flagging this as a questionable use of my resources. And cue the doubt, right? That's the doubt signal. Is this podcast really worthwhile? Is anyone even listening? Should I just go watch a movie and relax? Those questions only exist because the cause and the effect are too far apart for the brain to connect them. But if we could somehow plug into the effect right now, before it shows up in our visible reality, we'd probably double down on everything we're doing. We would do even more of it because we could see how it will be. We could see what all of this is building. And the brain would go, oh, okay. I thought you were wasting your time here, but this is absolutely worth the energy. In fact, let's go ahead and divert even more resources into this thing. And this is where I want to share something I tell my clients all the time, because I think it helps reframe this whole thing. Your future can only be created from the ingredients you give it today, from this minute, from this moment. Every action you take is an ingredient. And your future self can only build recipes from the ingredients that you give her now. So some of those ingredients won't have an immediate use. But without that ingredient, whatever was supposed to be built from it simply cannot exist. It's not that it gets delayed or it shows up differently. It's that the recipe is now missing a key component. The thing that would have been created from the ingredient becomes impossible. When I think about it that way, skipping out on something or cutting corners or being out of integrity with what I said I was going to do is directly taking an ingredient out of my components that I have available to me for my future. It becomes a missing ingredient. And I have no idea what my future self might need that exact ingredient for. I just know that she can't use it now because I didn't give it to her. Does that make sense? Because that's what compounding actually is. I talked about this a few weeks back, the power of compounding. And compounding only works if you don't interrupt it. But the reason people interrupt it is because of exactly what we're talking about today. They can't see the ingredients turning into anything. So they assume that nothing is being created or built. And so they stop contributing. Compounding requires sustained action over a long enough period of time for the curve to start to bend upward. And that sustained action, biologically, it feels pointless right up until the moment that it isn't. Right up until that moment, it feels pointless. We don't know when that moment's going to hit. I heard a quote this week that became an operating frame for me. Discipline is boring until you see what it produces. Doesn't that just hit? I mean, discipline feels boring. It feels pointless. Feels like a waste of resources, specifically because we can't see what it's producing yet. That distance between effort and the evidence makes discipline feel like blind faith. So I've been running this as a practice. Before I make a decision about my business, before I decide how I'm going to spend my time on something, I ask myself, if I could see the effect of this choice instantly, what would I see? What is this creating? What would I do? And it really makes the answer obvious. And this is why this has become much more than just a motivational reframe for me. The thought of looking back at this year-long public bet and seeing that I just spent a bunch of time talking about the same old shit and filling my weeks with busy work, that is just not an option. This tool, this practice of imagining instant feedback, makes it very real for me. It's not about staying motivated. It's about making sure that the ingredients I'm giving to my future self are identity grade ingredients. And every decision I'm making is literally building the woman I'm becoming, not just keeping me busy so that I have something to report on while I wait for something to happen. And there's a massive difference between making decisions from emotion or from ego and making them from identity. Ego says, I gotta post today because I'm gonna feel bad if I don't do it. Emotion says, I'm scared this isn't working, so I should try something different. But identity says, the woman I'm becoming would show up right now, even if no one liked her, no one appreciated her, no one heard her, and she felt like shit. She would still show up. And when I close the distance between cause and effect in my mind, it pulls me out of any kind of emotional reaction or ego-driven scrambling. And it puts me into a mode of making choices that are actually in tune with where I'm going. I'm choosing to operate as though the effect is instant, as though every choice I make is landing somewhere right now. Because physics tells me it is. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So here's the practice I mentioned earlier. If you want to try this, it's simple, but it hits differently when you actually sit with it, I think. You can find a quiet moment. It doesn't have to be a formal meditation. You can be on a walk or driving in your car, laying in bed before you fall asleep. Ask your brain one thing. Show me the connection between what I'm choosing and what it's creating. That's it. You don't have to force an answer or try to visualize some kind of specific outcome. Just direct your subconscious to go find evidence on your behalf, to shorten the distance between cause and effect and bring it into your awareness. And then pay attention over the next few days. It's not going to come as some big dramatic download. It's going to show up in the very small moments. For instance, Mike and I noticed some palm trees branches had blown off during a little wind skirmish that came through our neighborhood. And normally we would have looked at that and said, you know what? That's a lot of work. We're going to have to get the ladder out, deal with it. It's a whole thing. Let's either handle it later when we have more time, or we can wait until the landscapers come and they can deal with it. Right? That's two different ways to punt the ball. Two different ways to widen the distance between seeing something and noticing the effect of not doing anything about it. But we decided we're just going to handle it right then. Got the ladder out and took care of it. And maybe it took 20 minutes. It's actually kind of fun. We had to get really creative on how to get some of these palm tree branches down off the roof. And both of us said the same thing afterwards. We felt different, more powerful, more in coherence with the kind of people we say we are. And when you feel that, you get this lightness, this sense of completion. And it really has nothing to do with the palm trees. It has to do with closing the loop in real time. That's what I mean by giving your system feedback. It's your body telling you, yeah, you did the thing when you saw the thing. Instant, loop closed. You just created an ingredient right there. And here's where I've been taking this even further. I wrote about this on my Substack this week, and the question I keep coming back to is this. Is this action I'm about to take, or is this thought I'm having right now, is it in coherence with the woman I am becoming? And if it's not, then it must be biological noise. Just biological noise that my brain is creating from my current identity. It's the brain running an old, outdated operating code. Okay, because when you operate from your future identity, the person you're actually becoming and building, you're going to close that distance. Instead of waiting to see the effect of your choices, you're already living as the effect. You're making decisions as the person who already built the thing and who already knows how it works out. And from that place, the question of whether to get the ladder out or wait for the landscapers, it's not even a question, because that person just handles it, because that's who she is, because she knows that moment is an ingredient for something she's building in the future, even if she can't tell you how it's connected. So you can close the gap from the present by asking your brain to show you the connection between what you're choosing to do right now and what it is creating. Or you can close it from the future by asking yourself whether this choice is in coherence with who you're becoming. Either way, you're going to shrink that distance. And that's when you start to feel like what you're doing actually matters. And when the brain feels like what you're doing actually matters, it gets on board biologically. You feel a whole lot less friction. And maybe we could speed things up. I think the world is already proving that this is possible. Look at what's happened in just the past year. A year ago, if you wanted to build a website, you needed to invest quite a bit of time. Probably talk to a designer or learn how to do some basic coding or pay someone to do it. But right now, you can describe what you want to an AI and have an entire working site in under an hour. We can now diagnose heart conditions from a 10-second test that used to require invasive surgery and really expensive imaging. 10 seconds. Or video content that used to require a full production studio and editing crews is being generated from a text description. So everything around us is closing the distance between action and result. And that's just the external world. So maybe this can happen internally too. Maybe we can train ourselves to sense the effects of our choices faster and faster. Maybe that's what consciousness work actually is. It's increasing our awareness of who we are becoming and what that is creating. And the more we see how who we are being directly impacts what we are experiencing, the faster we adjust, which automatically closes the distance between those two things. So I don't have a clean conclusion for all of you on this one because I'm still in it. I am experimenting with it. I'm actually loving it. I'm meditating on letting cause and effect enter my awareness faster. But I can tell you that operating from this frame this week has created so much more intention with every single action in my business, really in my life. And I think it's because I changed how I see the relationship between what I do and what happens from that. I love imagining that everything I do creates an immediate effect, just like that hot stove. And the cool thing about that metaphor, and I mean this in the most positive way, is that it works both ways. The reward is coming too. Everything I've been building, every ingredient I've been giving to my future self over the last 25 weeks, really over the last 4 years, it's somewhere in the pipeline. And it's going to blow me away when I see it. So go bet on yourself.